Well, welcome everybody. It's a packed house.
The best people are here.
That's right. We're excited. Our first on the agenda will be the sheriff's office. I guess we'll turn the time over to Sheriff Jensen and anyone else that you've got on standby or.
Nope, just me. You're stuck with me.
Don't say that. That isn't just you.
Yeah.
It is you, okay? We appreciate you coming, taking that time and sharing this stuff with us and helping us along on the budget.
Put some of these things off to the side for a minute. First of all, I want to thank Wes and his staff. They've been fantastic to work with going through all this stuff, and it's been so great. They're gonna make me do more paperwork and track things more than I have in the past, but it's all good, and I think we've lost a lot of stuff and been a lot of confusion over the years with projects and stuff, because they just kind of get talked about someplace and kind of rat hole, but just never really a place to follow up on the things that we try to do, and they've been fantastic, so thanks you guys. I'm just gonna go, generally speaking, over some stuff and then talk about some changes we made in the budget and some of the new processes that Wes has come up with, as far as like capital improvement kind of projects, which that's gonna be a great thing. So I think we've talked about some of these. Do I need this microphone or can I? This over. We've talked about some of the revenue stuff in the past as we've dealt with some of the new positions that we've brought on with the school resource, the probation, the patrol contracts, and all the jail contracts. So this year, and it's scattered throughout the budget. I'll just talk off of one sheet. So in 2024, our revenues for the sheriff's office were $7.2 million, and in 2025, that'll be around 8.2. So we're up about $1 million in revenue, and where the bulk of that came from is, we've talked about this piece once already, is with the school contracts, with what the school district's done and what we've done with the contracts. They had an increase of about $300,000. Where the big increases came from, for the most part, were through the inmate contracts. Not only the UDC, but also the feds, with their formulas on how the daily rates get worked out. I'll just talk about some comparison pieces for just a minute. So, for the Department of Corrections in 2020, we were getting $53 a day for the inmates. The Sheriff's Association did a lot of work with legislators over the last few years and actually got that put into a formula, so it's not always running after the decimal dust at the end of the session and getting 17 cents increase on what those values are. So
I like that term, decimal
the
dust.
decimal dust,
Yeah.
that's what we literally, one year we went down there, we got 17 cents.
Wow.
Is what the daily rate increase from the state was. But with the formula in place, it goes into the governor's budget week one. There's no argument, there's no more bills to be written. It just follows the population of Department of Corrections in their budget. So every year since we've done that, we've seen increases in the state's daily rate. So in 2020, we were getting $53 a day. 2021, we got 54. 2022, when we really went on the fight, it jumped to $71 a day. And 2024, this year it went to $78.23. So we've gotten increases, well, this year about a $7 increase. We do have different programs in the jail that would create more of a revenue base. The therapeutic piece of it, that could actually be like an extra $14, $15 a day. But it's too expensive for us to do, and we don't have the services here to have sex offender treatment and therapeutic doctor types of treatment. So what we do offer the inmates, other than just a place to stay, is we have like cognitive interviews, like job skills, and you get about an extra $6 a day for those. So we're at $83 a day for most of our county inmates, which is up significantly from where we were in just 2020. So we also have Franklin County in our jail. The contract we have with Franklin County is they just follow and pay whatever our state daily rate is. So in We get these increases from UDC, that's the same increase follows to Franklin County, and then if we house inmates for Rich County, which we do periodically, or share inmates between jails, for whatever reason, everything just follows that state daily rate, which has been fantastic. The big increases came with the U.S. Marshals. 2020, they were at $54 a day. They can only be renegotiated like every 5 years, but we just redid those again, and they're paying $87 a day on a flat rate, and that will be a solid rate for the next 5 years until we can renegotiate that again. Theirs is all based just basically on the county's overall general budget and population and bed space kind of stuff. Theirs is a pretty arduous process to get through to get that, but they're set and they're good to go for a long time to come. With the inmates, just because this is where a lot of the revenue piece comes from, is today we are sitting at 315 inmates. Of that, the county inmates, I've talked with some of the council about the different kind of inmates we have, and some have asked whether we ever need to build another pod onto the jail. At some point, long past my living on this earth, probably so. But the jail's built for 365 inmates. Cache County built a jail to house county inmates. Our county inmate numbers are at 155, and that number is going. It was up. We kind of hit the COVID peak, but that number is getting back down. That number's really been about 140 historically. So until our inmate numbers get to the point where we don't have any more beds for our own inmates, I don't foresee the need for another pod. But what that lets us do is we have 365 beds, so we can contract out the beds that aren't being used by our own inmates. And there is more. We could have every one of those beds filled. There's a waiting list for bed space between the Department of Corrections and the Marshals. There's not enough beds anywhere in the state that we need to worry too much about keeping the beds full. There was a pretty significant increase in my budget last year versus this year, but most of what that increase came from is what we've already done in the June budget opening when we added the probation agents and the new school resource new folks, I shouldn't say guys, school resource people, deputies, and the full-time school security chief. Between all those positions, that was just over $1 million in increase to the budget, and I'm not exactly sure what the total increase was for 2025's pay package, so that's on top of what it was as well. So between the pay package and the increases, we've really tried to keep our budgets as flat as we can, because whatever the pay package looks like, will always be our number one priority in my office. Is the council's done a fantastic job of keeping pace with competitors and letting us be competitive with hiring. And we had just a brief conversation before a council meeting started, and we're down 4 positions right now. And that's actually amazing compared to where the rest of the state is. But we just there's always just going to be that turnover. Cherich and I were talking beforehand, and we talking about the retirement system, and there's a 20-year retirement. Is that really something that we hire people today and they're like, oh yeah, that's the deal, I'm going to get to that 20-year piece? It sounds great, and I wish everybody who got into this system would have that as a goal and get to 20 years. But unfortunately, we don't live in that world. I've been on the URS board for quite a few years. The average length of stay of a kid who gets out of the academy today is 7 years, and they are completely out of the system. They don't go into school teaching. They don't work for the street department. They don't stay in law enforcement. We just contribute a lot of money to the URS, the county does, and then they go away, and that money just sits there. So given where we're at right now, only being down 4 positions is actually fantastic. We have right now, we have 4 open positions that are non-sworn into control, and we have 125 applicants for the non-sworn positions in the jail, and that's numbers that we haven't seen in a long, long time. So I think things are really looking up for public safety, and we're getting some great people. We've got enough to choose from now. We get to be pretty selective on who we hire and who we keep, and getting the best we can get for Cache County. So that's the quick, in the breath discussion with revenues. We redid the animal control contracts, which are coming up, and put those on a 3-year cycle. And there'll be a $2 an hour increase every year for the next 3 years on the hourly rate for animal control, and that's to keep pace with what our costs are. This year, we're at the end of the 3-year cycle for the patrol contracts, and we will renegotiate the next 3-year contract cycle early in the year. And I would see substantial increases like we did with animal control moving forward for the patrol contracts as well. So we should see some pretty significant increases with that revenue piece as well. The big increase in the contracts was the school district. Previously, their contract was $238,000. With this year's contract, with the school district, it went to $560,000 for the Cache County School Districts and $56,000 for Thomas Edison. And as this bill takes hold more, I think we'll see some of those charter schools and other schools be compliant with the law, and they're going to have to talk about contracts with them as time comes up as well. If you look at the budgets, there's a lot of changing, moving back and forth between the divisions in our office. The biggest changes were between the admin budget and the correction side. And that's working with Wes and his staff, is we've had just things in the wrong spot. For instance, we had like the jail medical, which is over $1 million, was in the admin budget. We moved that back to the jail budget because it is 100% a jail function. That was one big one. The other big one in the changes between the divisions was for the jail meals. That was in the admin budget just because it's a contract, and we moved that one back from admin to the jail because that again is 100% a jail function. There's some other increases all the way throughout the budget, smaller ones, but it's just the cost of goods and going up. Guns cost more, tires cost more, vehicles cost more, uniforms cost more. Places that I did go back through and cut some items in the budget moving into this year were a lot in the training and the travel. We got a lot of new people coming on board, specifically the school resource people, just the certifications that they're going to need. Those numbers got pretty high, but we're going to re-look at what our training and travel is, and I brought those numbers back down to something more manageable. Not that there's not an increase in those budgets, but it's not what was initially submitted from the lieutenants to me. Some of the big changes you'll see in, I don't know what version of the budget you saw, like, did you guys see like the original budgets we put in, or just the first time you've seen it?
We've given them kind of the most up to date.
Okay, so the work we've done with Wes and the finance group is I just told our lieutenants, is like, just put it all in there. Just put the needs in there, whatever they are. The admin budget we got submitted to me was huge, and not that there's not needs there, but most of those we've moved out of the budget and put in the CIP program, and that's just upgrade, just like the jail roof and the plumbing system and the boilers on the roof and the parking lot resurface. Rather than just burying those in the 740 in admin, I pulled those numbers out of the budget and put it in the CIP piece. So we just use them as placeholders and look at them, and as the council has money and sees fit to budget that, we can have those discussions when we get there. Just things won't get lost if we have some place to keep track of them. One thing that we pulled out of the budget that's going to be a need that I just talking to Wes on how this actually works, is one CIP project we need to get done is the roof on the housing piece of the facility. It's leaking in 100 different places. But that roof's 20-something years old now. It's a foam downlay, and over time with the snow and the water and stuff, the screws are starting to poke up through the rolled on layers, and we've patched it about as many times as that roof can feasibly be patched. We have we've got as far as actually getting the bids out for that one. We have 3 bids back. It's about a $255,000 project. But as we get farther in the budget, I'll see how we want to deal with that
I
one.
was just gonna say, we've got all the capital listed, and the thought is we'll budget those in our capital improvement project fund, or Fund 400. So we've got a list here specifically of what different capital items that the sheriff is requesting.
All of those are capital improvements?
Capital requests.
Yeah, those are, and all those are just basically building needs. And over time, we're going to have to start looking at some of the replacements. So
You know, I look at number 2, that's a position.
Yeah, I wondered if
I
that,
don't know why we,
I don't know
I
if
don't know why
that's
that one was
equipment
there.
for him.
that was the position. Jill and I talked about that. Was that the equipment piece? Yeah, that one's already
I
funded, so I
just
don't.
see it says a
equipment,
position, and
yeah,
so I'm like
okay.
thinking, that's not capital improvement, so.
Yeah. I think that was probably the desks and the car and the stuff that came with the position, but that one's already funded.
Now, that got funded in March, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
And so
It
I'm
was,
just gonna remove that then,
yeah,
because if it's in the current budget year, there shouldn't be a need for
I can't.
it for next year.
I can't see that far, so I'll look at my cheat sheet. So the numbers on some of these other ones, like the electronic manifolds, some of those things are just wild guesses. It's up for us at this point, because we haven't gone out and got the bids and actually got real numbers for what some of these projects are going to need to be. One project that's coming up that we're gonna have to look at more seriously is the renovation of the 3rd floor when AP&P gets their building finished and moves. Everything inside those office space belongs to the state, so the desks, the phones, all that stuff, when they move, they'll take that stuff with them. I don't have a firm date on when they're gonna be moved out. They have leased a space by Costco in one of those new buildings. They're just working with the contractor right now to get the interior pieces of it done. So when we get a little bit closer and I know a date for that, we need to be up there and we gotta see what the needs are gonna be. Then I can come back to the council with some real numbers, not just the guesses that most of this stuff is right now.
But what will that space then be used for once they vacated?
So school resource will move up there, probation will move up there. Basically, the way the 3rd floor is built, half of it is office space and the other half are the training rooms. So the training rooms, that side have always been ours, we've used that. The other half of the building, which is secured and leased to the state, is the office space, and they have conference rooms and restrooms and locker rooms. So we'll take over the office space when they've completed their project. So we'll move school resource upstairs, probation upstairs. Everything's just growing, and we ought to just have our own space. The county doesn't need to build the building to make room for us when we already have the space that's available down there for us. They've been great tenants. They've been there a long time. The contract that we have with the state, the way it was written, there's no negotiation with that. It's just been the same price for 20 years. They paid the same square footage and same dollar, and that was a contract that was written when the building was built. So even if it was optional, we could do different things with them, we need the space, and we can take our own space back cheaper than, nor should the county have to build a space for that. Some of the other, I'm just kind of brushing through this and I'll answer any questions, is one increase that you're gonna see is at the impound facility we've contracted with a vet. It's about $70,000 or $80,000 a year, depending on really how much work there is for them to do. Providence City has reached out. They are looking at doing a TNR program for the cats, and we've always said is what they're willing to pay for and what they can do. We will work that out through the facility. So they've budgeted, I think it was $5,000 to do a TNR program just in Providence City. So the vet costs will be paid out of that through the contract that we have with Providence as they move forward with that TNR program. That's the only one we've done so far. It's the only city that's requested that kind of program. So we'll see how that one goes. Let me get back to my other page here. That's too small, Wes. I can't see that far. So you got to Let me bumble through my pages first.
I zoomed in for you, Sheriff. I don't know if that's better.
If you got a spotting scope or binoculars, that would probably be helpful.
Sorry about that.
I'll get my papers out, I can follow those.
Is it glare for you? Do we need to take some lights down or something for you
That's
too?
good, I have the same thing on
Okay.
paper right here.
Sheriff, is number 8 the sheriff vehicle payments, is that for new vehicles or is that prior year vehicle payments?
That's the current right now, and I think we're gonna meet in the next week or so and discuss how we're gonna move forward with, the vehicle purchase. We didn't buy any vehicles in 2024, cause I wanna try to get a handle on what we're actually paying for vehicles and what our needs actually are. So, but that payment is up there, that is, what we've done historically with, Bancorp is it's not a lease program, it's basically been a finance option, and we get so many cars a year, we just make payments as, and every year, cars drop off that and new cars are bought, and it's just been like this rotating cycle, and I'm not even sure where we're at with the vehicles. So we took a pause this year on the vehicles, and we didn't buy any in 2024 other than what we needed for the new positions, and we're gonna work with Wes and Jill and that group and come back with a number before we get too far in the budget process to see what we're doing with vehicles.
I was just asking, if it's prior year lease payments, then that would be paid at a debt service, not at a capital. But if they're new vehicles, then
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that one, so. Okay.
So on a lot of these requests, you're seeing all the capital requests and all their dollar amounts. We're not gonna be able to fund all of these requests, obviously. So there's a lot of requests there, but part of with the CIP is identifying which ones we do intend to fund. And really, until you know what resources are available, you won't be able to really determine that. And so, I imagine at a future date, future budget workshop, going through the capital requests and seeing what resources we have by specific fund. And, at that time, kind of coming up with a plan of what to fund.
These aren't in a priority ranking, are they? Or are they? Okay.
The only thing that's a priority there right now for us is the jail housing, the roof on the jail housing piece. The rest of it are just things we know are gonna be coming up that we're having some mechanical issues with, but at some point in the near future, they're gonna have to be addressed, and it's easier to pick them off a few at a time rather than now we got this $2 million bill to pay for, to keep the office. So there's no order to that at all. It's just so we can keep track of what we actually need to get accomplished.
So as this develops, though, that they ought to be,
We will-
Prioritized.
by you to make sure that we get down and start working in priority, so.
And I imagine we'll have the departments, they'll put forward their own priority as part of that request. And then I imagine having some kind of committee that goes through all the capital requests and discusses it and then eliminates some of it before it comes back to you to fund. So I imagine many of these you'll also start to see in like years 2 or 3 or 4, further down the road as we look at it and evaluate it.
Okay, Sheriff, I have a question on 10. Where's that roof and installation at? What building is that, or am I?
On which one? On
Number
SAR.
10?
Number
the
10?
SAR?
SAR Emergency Services.
Oh, that's the old road shop building.
Okay,
And that, I don't even know what the number is, and he doesn't know where it came from either. He's like, well, that's a big roof. It just needs to be inspected to see if it even needs to be replaced.
Okay.
Or if there's just patchwork that needs to be done on it. And I talked to the road shop guys, I mean, there's always been, you get a building that size, there's always a leak or two here or there, but, when we took over that building, we did get the roof inspected, and outside of a few leaks that we fixed, the roof was actually in pretty good shape. So that's just really up there as a placeholder so we don't forget that we need to pay attention to some of that.
thank you.
Understand too, these first few years as we put this capital plan out, you might only see the funding that really is for the first year or two. And the idea is to start develop a more long-range plan that, you know, has better information, that instead of maybe just a guesstimate on the capital, that it's a bid or it's a contract. Part of in the CIP form, they'll identify, you know, how far they've developed maybe a specific capital request. So how sure is the number, and, sorry, Sheriff.
No, you're good. I learned something. I like this process. I think it's a good process to get through. And there's a lot of numbers there and there's a lot of money, but they're guesswork at best. Outside of the housing unit, everything else up there is a guess. And as we get closer and we start looking at those projects, we'll drill deeper and get real numbers and prioritize which ones are the bigger issues. So we just stay on top of those.
It's a lot easier to act rather than react.
Yeah.
As things, if you can plan for it and give us time, rather than all of a sudden, bang, we have to react to a new machine or a new whatever.
Yeah, I think, this council's dealt with it too, just on the heating and air conditioning issues we've had down there that didn't get touched for 20 years. Then all of a sudden we're replacing 10 air conditioners every year because they're getting crushed by the snow and the ice and don't work. But off subject, but with the ARPA money that we did on that last go round, they're finishing that last project on that handler on the roof in hopefully by the end of August or first part of September, and that project will be done and hopefully works. Can't be any worse than it is right now, so whatever they do is an improvement. Hey,
Sheriff, I have a question. When you and I met, you were going over charges for services, and you said that you needed to talk to Wes, but there was like $10,000 for GIS fees?
yeah, that was in the, I think the form that I sent up to, back to finance. So Wes, I don't know if you guys have, I think Jill's seen this one.
The revenue.
So this is just like off my front sheet of the budget.
So is this the revenue
This is,
document you're
this
looking
is
for?
this one. So for whatever reason, I have GIS, So I take my numbers off of what you guys send me, and there's a GIS fee in there. It's like, I don't even know what that is.
I don't think it's
And there's a
specific to your department.
Trail coordinator's fee.
Yeah.
The way we set up the reports in Casal, for the revenues for Sheriff Jensen, on his budget, when we send in those reports, it just does a range of revenues. So the GIS fees actually fall within his range of revenues, and so it just gets grouped in his revenues.
Okay.
His financial statement, but it's not part of his budget.
Okay.
How about the trail coordination fees?
gonna be
That's
the
the
same
same
thing.
thing? Okay.
Because
Okay.
they moved from Fund 200 to Fund 100, and so
Okay.
it never interfered before, and that's why they're new this year.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Sounds like we may want to work some of our numbering there too. So that, we'll think through that, Brittany.
Yeah. Everything else on it, I just found those two as I was going through the revenues. I'm like, I don't have anything to do with GIS or trails, but unless you guys got some idea you haven't told me about yet, but I hope not, because I don't want to deal with trails or GIS, so.
We're gonna give you a mounted posse and you go on the trails.
You're going back to the policy.
You gotta be careful with that, because that can actually inflate a budget. Or, you know, that just skews things completely wrong for what we're looking at, you know?
So, I think that is an area we'll work on.
Yeah.
But some of the revenues too, I know in the past, we've tried to tie, or the finance department's tried to tie particular accounts, say it's whether it's funded by sales tax or property tax. And I really just want them to focus on their expenditures. Yes, we'll have some revenues that'll offset things, but that's not, it's my job to kind of project the revenues, and then they're to present their expenditure budget.
I think we met on this the first meeting, and this isn't a huge change, but it's a change, and I think our first meeting with the executive and finance, on the Explorer budget, we've talked about this before, they're gonna change some of the account, that had that be a rollover account. Everything that happens in that Explorer account is what they produce and create at the Posse Burger. So the idea when we got rid of the posse, no offense against the mounted posse, but we gave that to the Explorer group, and that's the high school kids, is to whatever they can earn down there, we use that money and use it for scholarship funds to send them through the academy when they get, if that's what they choose to do, and we want to expend that money. So they're working on that now, but I think that will be like a rollover account, so whatever doesn't get used or whatever we don't use for training costs for that year will be in an account where we can send the kids to the academy using those funds rather than coming out of county dollars. We do send a lot of people to the academy. That's the way of the world right now, is Ridgeland Academy class sits at about 20, the self-sponsored, and outside of that, when we hire them off our test, they have 0 certification, and we are eating 100% of the academy, the per diem, the meals, the travel, all that when we send new hires to the academy. So a fund like this, especially the Explorers who have earned that money, if we can use that to send them through, I think that's a great use of the dollars that they've earned basically really for themselves.
Are you requiring any kind of payback on that stuff, or is that just scholarship to get them through that program, and then hopefully you'll hire them?
Yeah, well, if we send them and they use that scholarship to go, then they are our employee. What we're doing right now with people, like we're testing in September, and we'll hire people off that list who have no certification at all, is we pay that cost. If we hire kids who are currently in the academy and they've paid their cost up front, we reimburse that over 3 years, just so there's some incentive for them to stay, but we're not paying the upfront cost of all that academy stuff. So trying to be creative on how we get them and keep them, and it's really been good outside of retirements. That's where the holes came from. The 4 that we have right now are 2 retirements and 1 who just doesn't want to be in public safety anymore, and 1 that we've had to let go. But our turnover rate is really, really low right now, which is fantastic. And the other questions, it's a mouthful and you haven't really even seen it. I'm sure I'll be back, and when you really go through it, I'll answer as many questions as I can, or.
So we do have, like, your documents here for, we provided them a copy
Okay.
of the Excel workbook, showing the expenditures. We are still working through personnel. There will be personnel costs for, insurance, market and merit that will be presented later. And so understand, and potentially some new positions. So understand the personnel amounts are going to change.
Yeah, I think one thing that's been confusing to me, and I think Wes and his staff have been fantastic, is we're going to go back and put this year, and it's be on us to be more Johnny on the spot with how we track people within the organization. So if we move somebody from the jail division to patrol, that needs to show up. The staff that we see in patrol needs to be patrol, which means we're going to have to time things out better for us and us plan ahead farther. So these guys are seeing the changes that we make internally, so we don't get off in the budget where I have to sit down with them and go over, spend 10 hours and like, okay, this person goes there and that person's over here and this person goes that. We just want to stay on top of that, and I think it'll make our job easier and budgeting wise easier, just to keep track of people as they move internally within the organization. So that's a change that'll be coming too, a good change.
Sheriff, I just had one question. In the criminal division, the total budget went up by 32%. Like there's a 32% increase. Is that mostly because of those school resource? Is that where they are?
Yeah.
Okay. I figured that's probably where they were, but I haven't had time to look at it close enough. But that's
The big increase is that with personnel is the criminal division, with the school resource and support services with the probation.
Okay.
That accounts for about 95% of those increases are just in personnel costs.
Right.
What do you see the trends of your budget doing in the next year or two? And I think, like, for example, we are getting the mandates from the state.
Yeah.
That's causing extra costs here and there with no money sometimes coming that way, so.
Yeah,
Did you see more of that coming?
no, I think everybody's trying to bite this first sandwich that they dish to us first. I think we've seen the cost of that school piece. I think one thing that may be coming, and we don't know the answer to this yet, is we've had to hire, the county had to hire the school security chief position. That is a 100% unfunded mandate that was given to every county in the state. The SRO piece of it, and anything that the schools do with the guardians or the school security personnel, that's taken on by the school districts. But what that bill does is it requires us to do all the training for the school teachers, the evacuation plans, the concealed carry, anything that deals with firearms is given back to the school security chief. At some point, we may have to come back and say, we need somebody else to help with the training, but I think we're a couple years away from even knowing what that whole bill even does. And my guess is there'll be some modifications to that bill as this moves forward. So through the Sheriff's Association, we started a subgroup, which is the School Security Chiefs Association under the sheriff. So 29 people get together, and they're all employees of the sheriffs, and they are diving into that bill, and they're going to come back with recommendations to the sheriff that we can take to the legislature and say, this isn't working, this is too much, this is too little, and also work with the school districts, because they're really the ones who are going to eat 90% of the cost of all this. And there's some worries with that. I mean, I just got my tax notice in the mail.
But I still think it's better that you guys are doing the training though.
100%, and
I think
I
that's
don't know
critical.
as we would have it any other way, and our school district has been fantastic. I'm like, if you guys want to do something different, the bill allows to have different instructors, NRA instructors, there's a lot of different firearms instructors out there, but if we can't follow the game plan that my office is setting forth, then you'll have to figure out something else for training. If we can work together and have a comprehensive, solid plan moving forward with the training, then we are 100% on board to do that with them. But I think here's as far as this is going to get this year, is the 29 security chiefs are meeting together right now. I've been kind of over that group because I volunteered Lieutenant Barchi to head that group. We just will be on the front of this and on the back end of this.
That's right.
But I said, before you guys get too wrapped up into that 600-page bill, I said, maybe we've got to take an inventory statewide to see where every sheriff's office is at with their school security needs and where every district is at with their needs. And just take an inventory of where we're at. That may be as good as it gets for the first year, is every county and every sheriff and every school district. Just take an inventory of what you have, what are your policies, and then present a plan moving forward. What does it look like 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Because if you just read that bill, you just put a lot of zeros behind it, and it doesn't fix anything. So there's a lot of studying and patience with what's moving forward. So outside of some weird changes happening, I don't foresee us doing anything different other than the school district may decide that they want to add or need some extra school resource officers, but that will be through a contract with the county to add those bodies to the budget.
Okay, well, we've got Matt back there about falling asleep on us, so.
Sorry, Matt, I bored you too.
Anyway, no, but thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
Sheriff.
there'll be a lot more questions, I know, so
Yep, anytime. So
appreciate you.
I appreciate the finance. They have been fantastic. So that's been great. We'll
Thank
get
you.
together and work on the car stuff.
Well, I guess
We've
you're the
got
biggest pie
great
they have to
staff
eat.
out here. It's done great.
They are. They're
Seriously, they've done fantastic.
Okay. Well, Matt, you can have it.
Hey, I'm just sad that, no, I thought I'd been eating a posse burger, and now I'm eating some ranger burger. It's not gonna taste the same.
Okay.
There's a PowerPoint front if you don't mind. Throw you for a loop.
Thank you.
Should be one under budget.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to use,
Yeah, I can,
you want it.
yeah, is there a way to pop that on the screen? thanks for the opportunity to come and talk. I'm probably not gonna be as entertaining as the sheriff, but I'll do my best, so. Time is short, so I just wanna make sure that I cover what you guys would like to and give you an opportunity to ask any questions and do any explanations, so. Just, I wanted to just kind of show you how we're broke out. We have admin, we have road engineering and vegetation. That's how Public Works is organized. Here's the total expenditures for all of our different divisions. And if you look at the bottom, numbers don't always tell you the details, but overall expenditures this year are down. Roads down, that depends on projects, vegetation's down, engineering's up. Admin is really high, about 627, and it relates a lot to what Wes and Chad were just talking about, is those capital improvements and where to put them and how that works. So if I get into administration, there's kind of how we, just three of us, myself, our facilities manager, and our office specialist. If we look at just our personnel budget, going through those, again, draw your attention down that capital investment. So 680,000 there as a request for capital investments, and 665 of that is just project-related expenses. So, again, like Chad was talking about, you have some increase in fuel, supplies, paper, pens, all those types of things come up. You know, your personnel goes up a little bit. But if I, with our short time, I do want to talk about the capital improvements so that we're trying to pull all those together. And so if we look at the very bottom of this page, those capital investments, the very bottom, and Lorianna handed me this, so I don't know if you guys have this or not.
Yeah.
But if we look under the admin, we have Public Works admin equipment. There's a utility trailer. That's probably the only thing that's not related to the building. And that's because last year or this year, our guy bought a little tractor that he wants to haul back and forth from Richmond to Hiram to do different things, sweeping, grading, little projects with his little Kubota. The other part of that capital improvement is one of fuel island canopy that was supposed to be part of our building when we first built it, that goes over our islands to keep people out of the weather, the wind and the rain when they're trying to fuel their trucks and do different things. There's an emergency generator on there that we've tried to get for quite a few years so that Public Works facility is all on a generator, so that if the power goes out in Hiram, we have some door locks and sensors. Right now, our door locks, when the wind blows, it sucks the doors open because the locks are on electronic, so when they just go in, and so when the wind blows, all the doors come open, and if the wind's strong enough, it jerks the doors off the hinges. So and I guess why I'm trying to bring attention to it is it kind of goes back with Chad of how do we prioritize which capital improvement projects we want to do, and I like Wes's idea about putting them on a list. If not, each department's putting a whole bunch of capital improvements in their budget, and it's hard to see them all with one glimpse and one glance and decide which ones are beneficial to the county. And in our case, we didn't have anywhere to put them. So we haven't really had a chance to get to the detail that the sheriff has with Chad. So we just put them in our budget. And so I want to draw them to the council's attention. We're asking for them. If the money's there, great. If maybe we have to sort through them and take them out. But at that point, there wasn't really a great program for that, so.
Have you tried to prioritize those, Matt? Like if it comes to that,
Yes, we can. We haven't, you know, like your door locks and sensors for 15,000, that's probably gonna be one of our top ones, right? Cause that's gonna reduce damage, it's gonna keep things safe. The emergency generator is one of those things that it's probably wise to have a discussion about. You know, if in an emergency, you know, what do we wanna use that building for? How much of it do we wanna be able to have? The south gate that's on that, we have gates that slide open. Sheriff's here, still here. When he put a new gate down at the old road shop, he does one that lifts up. instead of slides back and forth. So in the wintertime, we've had a lot of trouble with our gates and they don't open because of snow. So that 75,000 is just for one gate. So one of our 3 entrances would be converted to a slide type to one that opens and they don't have as many snow problems. So again, a hard one to say we don't need it, because if we can't get in and out of our facility at 4 in the morning when it's snowing or in the evenings, and we have to leave those gates open, then we're not secure. But canopies, you know, that's one of those things that would be nice, but it's probably not the top one. But how do I rank that above a generator could be a little tough to, that's a bigger discussion for the council.
Yeah, we'll have to get there at some point, but.
So, if I keep moving, any questions on that, or anything that I don't want to skim too quick, and I'm happy to answer more questions if we need to. Engineering, we have.
Can I speak
Yep,
just for a
go
second?
ahead, go
Sorry
ahead.
to interrupt you.
Nope.
So the thought process too is to have a capital program planning committee that has all the capital requests to look at, and they can go through and that way the departments see each other's capital requests, and they can say, you know, we really don't need this cover over the fuel because the roof at the sheriff is probably more important. But the idea is they'll sit down together and go through all those requests, and then we'll come back based on the amount of funding that you allow within our capital project fund. We'll come back with basically a list of the projects that we think you ought to fund.
So Matt, on your generator, when you talk about, because we've talked about generator for the county fairgrounds and that too. Does the price change? Because for instance, I used a great big portable generator for some things here lately. Is that something that could be moved from place to place, or that would fall in that?
Could be. I think if you had a big emergency, Nolan, where you could transport that generator over to start that facility. But if you're in a snowstorm, you're probably not going to be out, or an earthquake or something like that, you're probably not going to be moving that generator around. But we have a generator that does a lot of our facility. So a lot of that cost that we have up there, the 375, is for a little bigger generator. We'd be able to sell our old generator, which might even work for the fairgrounds, but because it might be big enough to run the fairgrounds. But a lot of that is your wiring and your controls and interconnects and stuff that's a little over my head, but a lot of those is how your building is set up to switch from the power supplies. So yeah, it wouldn't be bad to have a generator, but I think for the county, for our facilities that are there, it would still be better to have a permanent one that you can service, you can check. Hiram's power is not very reliable, so.
Nope.
Any other questions, Nolan?
Nope.
No.
I've just got a curious question. Where in the world can you buy land for $50,000?
I was gonna say, what's that?
If I can give you guys an example,
Yeah, little pieces.
are you talking about like the land purchase in our budget item? No?
It just says land
Number
purchase,
3 on your-
roads, $50,000.
So let me,
I'm just curious.
so there's been a few projects recently where, and I got a really good example to bring that home, is we've been working with the landowner up on the Long Divide. So if you guys are familiar with where the Long Divide is, the county plows to the center, to the county line, and then we have to turn around and plow back down. And Box Elder plows up to their county line and turns around. There's nowhere to turn around. So we've been working with the landowners that own the land there, and they're willing to allow the county to come in and construct a turnaround. And that land purchase would be to provide them some kind of money for an easement. So some of that is for easements, right-of-way purchases, small purchases. If you're going to buy acres of land for county infrastructure buildings, yeah, that's not there. But it's money to help with us with easements when they come. So for that landowner, we're working on giving him some money to, because we're taking that out of farming, so he'll have to pay back taxes, and Greenbelt status will change when we record an easement on that land. And so it's to help with that. Sometimes they'll do some fencing and stuff like that as well, Carl.
It was just a little deja vu to see $50,000 for land.
When we come back for a real land purchase, it's gonna be a little more than that one. For engineering, we have 2 full-time engineers besides myself. We have a stormwater inspector. We have had a part-time intern position that's been there. And you'll see I still have the county surveyor position in here. If you remember, came to the council last year for that position, it was denied. You will see it again here shortly, so. The engineering budget is loaded with that position, just so that everyone's aware. We've put, personnel costs for that person, other miscellaneous, if they need some paper, pencils, stuff like that, that position is in there, so. If that position's not approved again later this year, then we'll need to revise our budget and take all of those costs associated with that position out as well, so.
How much are we contracting for that right now? Is that in here?
That question comes up quite a bit, so as much money as we can afford. That person that we're hiring for, to recap that, and I'll be happy to expand more upon that when we request that person in a budget opening.
Okay.
But that person's really to come in-house and do the things that the county needs to do in-house. So when we do annexations, it requires the county surveyor. When we monument section corners, that requires a county surveyor. When we review subdivision plats, that requires a county surveyor. So there's a lot of things in the county that could be done, that could be to help that position. And so we pay the bare minimum. Right now we subsidize a lot of our developments because we pay the contracted surveyor more than what we're getting. And annexations, subdivision reviews, all those things. So if you just take what we're actually paying that person, it's less than what the new guy's salary would be. So it's not going to be a savings to the county to hire this position. It's going to be to have that person that we need by state code in our presence to help us with decisions. It's a licensed PLS that can come to meetings and that can make sure the county's doing what it needs to from the surveying world. Over time, I would assume that position will be able to absorb some of those costs that we're paying out. But initially, I don't think that's not my intent. But you have a lot of other departments and a lot of other staff that are acting as the surveyor and doing survey work, and it will take a lot of load off their plate that you don't see. That would be the GIS department. That would be the engineering department. That would be the planning and zoning department. That would be, the clerk when he comes in and they want to know about annexations. So we have a lot of people that are trying to act as the surveyor, and we just need to get a surveyor to act as the surveyor. So.
We'll talk to you more about that.
There's all of our budget items. Again, there isn't any giant changes. The other one, if you're looking, if you can read it, Catherine, at the bottom of this sheet here, you have the second one up says section corner work. The one up above that says section corner work 25% survey reviews. That 40, 25, and 28,000 is what's budgeted for those outside contractors. We actually have 2 of them. One of them does development review for us, and we hire the other one with whatever money we have available to go help us with section corners. One thing to note is engineering is where we put a lot of our COG pass-through money. So in 2025, we have of the 2.8 million in the engineering budget, 1.8 million of that is pass-through funds for COG or other projects and section corners and all that. So although the budget's pushing 3 million, really our expenses and paying our salaries and all that is only about 920-ish. so, just so that you guys know that when you think my little staff of 2, 3 is, it's mostly pass-through costs. However, I did want to give them a plug that in 2025, they'll probably be managing upwards of $20 million in projects that are for capital improvements, not including all the work they're doing for development review, helping the COG. So they already have a full plate, and between ARPA and COG projects and the bridge out in Trenton and those places, they'll probably be managing nearly $20 million in projects next year. So those guys have some pretty big shoes to fill over the next couple of years, and when I talked to them today, they're filling it, so. Vegetation, Jake has 3 operation assistants, and then he'll be up towards 13 seasonals throughout the year. Jake's budget actually went down a little bit. That's just due to grants, projects, and this year he didn't ask for much for capital. Last year he asked for a few other things. This year he's asking to replace a couple of Kubotas and replace one of his mowers. So his capital expenditure has gone down. That's why you see, I think we're still trying to work out some personnel issues on that one. It necessarily shouldn't be going down, but we're looking into that. Professional services has gone up. Jake took some of his miscellaneous items and some of his, he's been paying a drone to go spray chemicals for him.
Wasn't that aquatic stuff that he was spraying?
Yep, and so he never really had a place for that, so that's what the professional services, he actually started a budget this year so he could start paying for those outside sources, so. Before that, it was, well, we can see what he has, if we look at professional services. I probably went too far, didn't I? Yep, I went too far. Can I go back this way? Iron Road.
So did you take all those, like the chemicals and that, are you saying you took that out of that part of the budget? and put it
Just the
somewhere else?
just the part that he's paying. So if we come to, so he took that weed and wildlife program. It used to be under miscellaneous. So it's 310, he added 310. So, but we tried to get rid of anything that said miscellaneous. So when he does his little hardware program and he takes the kids up to Hardware Ranch, he's been paying that out of miscellaneous. And so he has to pay some people for that. So we put that weeds and wildlife program in there, and then you can see his drone service, so.
Thank you, we appreciate that about the miscellaneous.
Yeah, so, again, nothing too big for Jake. He did get an extra grant this year from the state, so he's been getting right around 31,000, I believe. Don't quote me, but because Jake's been doing a good job and the vegetation department's been doing a good job, he got an extra 40,000 that will probably be ongoing. So he's doubled some of his grants for ISM, which stands for invasive species mitigation. That helps him go out and try to find some of those weeds that are trying to take over and try to eradicate them. So good for him. He's actually finding ways to keep his costs down but get more grants. So road division, 21 full-time, 12 seasonals. Their budgets overall is down a little bit. Again, trying to move things around. A little less capital this year, but ARPA money kind of makes the numbers jump around. So when we get an ARPA project or something for 400,000, it looks like we're down this year. We're probably pretty even compared to what we've been in the last few years. No big giant surprises. I can't think of anything special that jumps out at me with the road department's budget. Just kind of taking, if we go back to the capital investment, again, this is where we're asking for a vac truck next year, a grapple attachment for the skid steer, 1, 2, 3 fleet trucks, a broom attachment for a skid steer, a postal logger, and then there's that 50,000 for the easements and the right-of-ways. But that would be capital that's just coming into the department. Some of that's replacement, some of that's new stuff. A vac truck is something that we don't have that we would like to purchase. Those top 3 line items, Estancia Lane, 3400 South, and 8300 South, are road projects. So those are capital improvement projects that we're paying with county funds. Like the engineering department is going after grants, and those are pass-through. These are not pass-through. So as part of this bigger capital improvement projects that we need to look at, we need to start sorting them out. So with Wes and different things in our transportation master plan, we're hoping to get you guys a list. Estancia is out.
Wasn't that on the docket to be done this year?
It is. So if you remember last year with our budget cuts, we were asking for 300,000, and we cut 100,000 out of that. And so this is the 100,000 you cut out last year we're coming back for. That's pretty much cost, the pavement cost is right there, so.
And where's 3400 South? Is that Nibley?
3400 South. $3,400 South is off of, we have a list about this long, so I apologize for not. There's a 3,400 South. I think where they're trying to do it is over by Mendon. There's a new arena that was built over there. There's a little road we call Bailey's Road. And so there's a road, I don't know, Nolan, you drive that way much?
Nope.
You know where the big, so you would come along the backside from Wellsville to Mendon. There's a little road down there, and it's been washed out a few times, and we've been able to get all the right-of-way from development, but the road is probably only like 12 feet wide. It's been washed out a few times. They just built a new equestrian
That's
thing.
the one-lane bridge that is also right there?
No, this would come off almost across the street from like Maple Rise, and some of those across the street from that, it goes down. They did some work on Bailey's a little while ago, so but it's over in that area. It's a full road reconstruction, and it's one that they need to do. So again, I was talking to Nolan the other day, and we probably have 200 or 300 projects worth about $200 million. I mean, that's just a guess. But we don't really have a great way to prioritize them in the county. You know, a lot of that falls on my head of not doing a better job of prioritizing them. But it's just been kind of an overwhelming task to try to figure out of your 200 projects, which one is. So we've taken a couple the last few years, but this is kind of like a stab in the dark, or like just a little bit here. We really need to come up with a big list and fund this other methods. If we keep trying to stick a few little projects in the road budget, we're never going to get anywhere. So, but these are just some that they can do that they're probably going to do anyways. So instead of pushing it in and hiding it within our asphalt budget and material budget, we want to bring those to light so that the council can see that, hey, we're going to spend this much on a project, instead of hiding them like they used to in the asphalt budgets and material budgets.
So why is the VAC truck listed on the road but not on your 5-year capital improvement plan?
It's because it is under the A67 total.
She just has it under roads equipment.
So the second one.
Oh,
So,
it's all just
Grouped together?
wrapped together. Okay.
so
I would say too, just Matt doesn't give himself enough credit, but, you know, he's got some engineers that he's been able to hire recently, right? And they're starting to develop a plan. Don't expect necessarily to have the perfect plan identified. Yeah, there's 200 projects. I'm not anticipating that Matt would be able to prioritize those in 1 year. it's gonna be a process over time. Our CIP plan gets better and better as it develops, so,
Well, it's the volatility of the hiccups that occur in between.
Yeah, we want to, also, one of the things that we notice in our department is we have to be somewhat dynamic. And I did want to bring up during this meeting is that if you remember, we had a lot of flooding at the end of 2023. We've been working fairly diligently on keeping track of all those costs. David's not here, but he did declare an emergency declaration at that point, which kind of triggered some stuff at the state. So last week, we received a check from the state for $554,000 to pay us for all those costs. So anything that we had completed in that time. So work that the county kind of didn't really have a choice but to do if we wanted our roads to get opened back up. But because we did do some documentation, that paid for our labor, our time, engineering time, anything that come out of pocket for the county, that did pay us back, plus some of our materials and our time. So some of these types of things like this, when we find opportunities or grants, so you'll probably see us come back knocking on your door asking for some equipment out of that money that we essentially kind of made in a way. I mean, it wasn't our own, totally our own doing, but then we'd like to take some of that money back and put it into additional projects. So as we grow, we need to keep replacing our equipment. So for this capital equipment, generally we're on the order of about $600,000 a year that replaces, keeps things going, keeps us going. As things wear out, we try to upgrade, get rid of them before they became too much of a maintenance nightmare. So, but any questions? That is that's about as quick as I could go through 4 division budgets.
Well, we are gonna have more questions as we go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this 20 minutes doesn't do justice for me to try to explain. You see some numbers here and there, but it doesn't explain the why and the how and some of those things. If you guys have questions, please reach out. I'd welcome the opportunity to sit down with any of you for a while and try to dig in where we need to, so.
Now, what does RSSD stand for?
Road Special Service District.
Oh.
That's a district in the county that needs to have a board meeting, in my opinion, to allocate that budget. We just see that as a revenue on our side, but that's a district. So,
How long has that been formed? How long ago was that put
long
together?
time.
Too long.
So, they collect that district was formed to collect this secure rural trust school stuff. There's a few different names for it, and that brings in the county about $120,000 a year. And so typically what's been done is just allocate that to road projects and road maintenance, so.
Okay.
I think you have to go through, in discussions we've had, you have to have a board meeting and have to go through some processes with the state in order to secure those funds. That's part of the reason that fund for Special Service District is set up.
It's to receive those funds, and then we should have a board meeting to discuss how we want to expend those funds. And it could be, say, hey, this year we want to fund Estancia Lane, and so it's kind of earmarked for different projects of that 120 grand. Or hey, we want to help the road department buy a piece of equipment, or
Right now, we're just doing a
Striping.
flow through into the,
Yep, so it just comes in as a revenue line item to the road division.
okay, well, let's go ahead and break here for a little bit.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I know we'll have some questions and fine tune this as we go. We'll get through it.